Welcome back. Tonight we are walking Yharnam, and we are not going there for the beasts, we are going for the people. Settle in and let it carry you down. If you enjoy these, a subscribe helps the channel more than you would think. The city that answers through doors. You arrive in Yharnam at night, and the first thing you learn about this city is that nobody will look at you. The streets are wide enough, in places. Cobblestones, worn smooth by centuries of feet and rain. Gas lamps burning low behind their cages of iron, throwing that pale amber light that never quite reaches the corners. Wrought iron fences. Stone steps going up and up between houses that lean toward each other overhead, so that the sky above the alleys is only a narrow strip of black, and in that strip, the moon. There are people here. You can hear them, but you will not see most of them, not properly, not ever. This is the thing about Yharnam that unsettles people long after they have forgotten the monsters. The city is populated almost entirely by voices. You walk up to a house, and there is a small window in the door, shuttered, and behind that shutter someone is listening to you breathe. You knock. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes a voice comes, thin and tired and afraid, and asks who you are. And you answer, and the voice decides whether to keep talking to you. And then the shutter closes again, and that is the entire relationship. That is all you will ever have of that person. There is a reason for this, and the reason is simple and sad. Tonight is the night of the hunt. On the night of the hunt, the doors of Yharnam are locked from the inside, and the people who live behind them are told, by tradition and by the church, to stay where they are until dawn. Do not open the door. Do not go into the street. Whatever you hear out there, whatever screams, whatever begs, it is not your business, and it is not safe, and the hunters will handle it. So the citizens sit in their dark rooms, and they listen to the city being torn apart, and they wait for a morning that this time is not coming. You knock on one door and a man tells you to leave. You knock on another, and a woman tells you that she is fine. Thank you, and that she does not need help, and you can hear in her voice that this is not true. Some of them curse you. Some of them beg you to prove you are human, that you are not a beast that has learned to imitate a knock. And how would you prove that? What would you say? The people of Yharnam have learned that the things outside can wear a familiar shape. That is the first horror of this city, and it is not a monster. It is a social fact. Yharnam has taught its own citizens not to open the door to a stranger in need, because the stranger in need might be the thing that eats them. And so the city has, very quietly, over many years, made compassion into a risk. Let that sit for a moment, then let it go. It is a long time ago now, and none of those doors are yours to open tonight. There are a handful of people who will still talk to you, and each one of them is a small light in a very large darkness, and each one of them will go out before the night is done. That is what this story is. Not a bestiary. A list of people. The ones who spoke to you kindly, the ones who lied to you gently, the ones who tried to save you, the ones who wanted very badly to be the one who killed you. Some of them are monsters wearing a person's face, some of them are people wearing a monster's face. In Yharnam, those two things are much harder to tell apart than anyone would like. We are going to walk through them slowly. One at a time, we will find out who they were before the blood took them, and we will find out what the blood turned them into, and then we will set each of them down and move on. Breathe out. The streets are quiet where we are standing. The lamplight is warm. Nothing here needs anything from you. Let us begin with a kind voice. There are not many of them, so we should enjoy this one while it lasts. Gilbert, the kind voice behind the window. He is the first person in Yharnam who is nice to you. You come down the stairs into the little courtyard near the beginning of everything, still bewildered, still carrying whatever weapon you manage to find, and there is a house with a shuttered window at street level. And when you approach it, a voice says hello. His name is Gilbert. He is not from Yharnam. That is the first thing he tells you, and he tells you because he understands immediately that you are not from Yharnam either, and that this makes the two of you the same kind of person. Outsiders, people who came here for the blood. Because that is why anyone comes to Yharnam. That is the whole reason the city has a reputation beyond its own walls. Somewhere in this place there is a cure. Not a cure for one thing, a cure for everything. The blood of Yharnam heals what medicine cannot heal, and if you are sick enough and desperate enough, you will make the journey, and you will lie down on a table in a clinic, and you will let a stranger put a needle in your arm. Gilbert made that journey. So did you. And Gilbert is dying anyway. He does not say it in those words at first. He is too gracious for that. He tells you what he knows about the city, and what he tells you is genuinely useful, which makes him almost unique in this game. He tells you about the healing church, and the cathedral ward, and the beasts, and the hunt. He speaks in a warm, slightly formal, slightly weary voice, the voice of an educated man who has been in bed for a long time, and every so often, in the middle of a sentence, he coughs. The cough is the whole tragedy, and the game does not underline it. It just lets you hear it. It gets worse each time you come back. He apologizes for it. He asks you how you are getting on. He gives you a weapon if you ask, and it is a good weapon, and he does not ask for anything in return. Here is the thing about Gilbert that quietly rearranges everything if you think about it too long. He is behind a shuttered window. You never see his face. Not once. He is a friend made entirely out of a voice and a closed shutter, and the reason for the shutter is not fear of you. The reason for the shutter is that Gilbert does not want you to see what is happening to him. Because he is sick, and he came here for the blood, and the blood is not curing him. It is doing what the blood always does eventually. Later in the night, after certain things have happened in the city, you come back to his window and it is open. And there is no voice. And there is a beast in the room. There is no fight there. Not really. The thing is fast and terrible and pitiable, and it does not know you, and it does not know itself. And when it stops moving, what is left is a body, and beside the body, a small sealed vial. He left it for you. He knew what was coming, and in the little time he had between knowing and becoming, he set aside one last helpful thing for the stranger who used to stop and talk to him through a window. That is Gilbert. The friendliest person in Yharnam, the first person the city takes from you. There is a small thing worth adding, and it is the sort of thing that only becomes clear on a second visit. Gilbert never once asks you for help. Think about how strange that is. He is dying. He is alone. He is in a room he cannot leave, in a city that is currently being torn apart, and he knows better than anyone what is happening to his own body. Any reasonable person in that position would ask a stranger with a weapon for something. Medicine, a door barred, a message carried. Anything, and he does not. Every conversation you have with him is him giving you something. Information you needed. Encouragement you did not know you needed. A weapon if you have not found one. Directions, context, comfort. He spends the last hours of his life doing unpaid consultancy for a stranger who wandered past his window, and he does it graciously, and he never mentions that he is running out of time. Some people read that as nobility, and it might be, but I have always thought there was something simpler in it. I think Gilbert is lonely. I think he has been lying in that dark room for weeks or months, hearing Yharnam go about its business on the other side of the shutter, and I think when a voice finally stopped and spoke to him, he wanted to keep it there as long as he could. And the only currency he had left was usefulness, so he was useful, right up until the end, and then a little after it, with the vial he set aside. Let that be enough. Let the window close. And I want to be careful here, because this is a sleep story, and I am not going to sit in that room with you. So let us step back out into the street. The window is behind us. The lamp above it is still burning. Whatever Gilbert was, he was kind to a stranger on the worst night of his life. And that is not nothing, and it is finished now, and it cannot hurt him anymore. Breathe. We are only walking. There is a long night ahead, and no reason at all to hurry through it. Iosefka, and the thing that answers in her voice. You wake up in a clinic. That is how everything starts. Before the streets, before the lamps, before Gilbert. You are lying on a table in a room in Iosefka's clinic, and someone has just put the old blood into you, and you did not see their face either. You saw a shape, and you heard a voice, and then you were somewhere else. Iosefka is a doctor. She runs the clinic at the edge of the city, the one where outsiders come to receive the blood. And when you eventually find your way back around to the clinic's front door, in the middle of the hunt, that door is barred, and a woman's voice speaks to you through it. She is calm. She is professional. She tells you not to come in. She tells you that she has barricaded herself inside for the safety of her patients, that the hunt is no place for you, that you should find somewhere to shelter. She is, in every way she presents herself, exactly what a good doctor should be on a night like this. Sensible, protective, firm. And she suggests, very reasonably, that if you meet anyone out there who needs somewhere safe to go, you might send them to her. You will find people who need somewhere safe to go. That is the design of it. Yharnam gives you a small handful of frightened survivors, and it gives you 2 places to send them, and one of them is a chapel. And one of them is the clinic with the kind doctor behind the door. I think you already know where this is going. Let me tell it gently. If you send them to the clinic, they thank you. They go. And later, when you find another way into that building, through a back route that the front door was never going to give you, you walk the corridors of Iosefka's clinic, and you find them. Not as people. The clinic is full of things that are still partly recognisable, and every one of them was a person you personally directed there, because you thought you were doing the decent thing. The woman behind the door is not Iosefka. That is the twist, and it is worth saying plainly, because the game is characteristically coy about it. The real Iosefka is in that building, but she is not the one talking to you. She is in a cell, and she has been experimented on, and what has been done to her is not survivable. The voice at the door belongs to someone else. Another hunter, another woman, wearing Iosefka's clothes, and Iosefka's role, and Iosefka's reassuring bedside manner, and using all of it to farm the streets of Yharnam for fresh subjects. She never raises her voice. She never says anything cruel. She sounds exactly like safety. That is what makes her one of the most quietly frightening people in this entire world. Not because she is powerful. She is not, particularly because she demonstrates that in Yharnam. The sound of somebody being helpful carries no information at all. The city has taught its citizens not to open the door, and Iosefka's clinic is the reason that lesson exists. And here is the last turn of the knife, which I will make quick. The person who is doing this, whoever she truly is, does not appear to be doing it for cruelty. Everything in that clinic points at research. Somebody wanted to know what the blood does to different people. Somebody was keeping notes. In this city, the very worst things are almost never done out of malice. They are done out of curiosity, by people who have convinced themselves that the curiosity is holy. That is the horror of the healing church in miniature, standing behind a door, speaking softly, asking if you have met anyone who needs help. And there is a shape to this that repeats. I want to name it now at the start so that you can watch it happen for the rest of the night. In Yharnam, nobody is punished for being wrong. People are punished for being curious in a room with a locked door. Every institution in this city began as an honest question. What is this blood? Why does it heal? What happens if we take more of it? Where did it come from? And every institution in this city discovered that the question could only be answered by taking a person apart. Bergenworth asked, and it needed the tombs. The church asked, and it needed patience. The choir asked, and it needed subjects. Mensis asked, and it needed dreamers. And the woman in Iosefka's clinic asked, and she needed you, standing in the street, sending her the frightened and the friendless because you thought a locked door with a soft voice behind it was the safest place in the city. The blood does not corrupt anyone. Not really. That is the tidy explanation, and I do not entirely believe it. What corrupts them is the answer being just barely out of reach, forever, and there always being one more person available who nobody will miss. All right, away from the door now, away from the clinic entirely. All right, that is enough of that. Let it go. Step back out onto the street. The clinic is behind you, and the door is shut, and there is nobody in there anymore who can be hurt or who can hurt anyone. The lamps are burning. The fog is coming in off the rooftops. You have nowhere in particular to be. Rest here a while. We will go on when you are ready, and it will not matter if you are asleep by then. Father Gascoigne, who could not hear the music. There is a man in a graveyard, and he is on his knees. You come around the corner of the Tomb of Eden, and you see him at a distance, hunched over something on the ground, and the shape of him is wrong in a way you cannot immediately name. He is wearing a hunter's coat, and a hunter's hat, and a scarf pulled up over the lower half of his face. He is one of you. That is the first thing you understand. Whatever else he is a hunter, and he is here doing the work. His name is Father Gascoigne. He is a priest. He is also a hunter, which in Yharnam is not the contradiction it sounds like, because in Yharnam the church and the hunt are the same institution wearing two coats. He was sent here from somewhere else. He is not native to this city either, a foreign clergyman brought in to serve the healing church and to walk the streets on hunt nights, and he did that work for years, and he was good at it. He had a wife. He had 2 daughters. He lived in a house in Yharnam with people who loved him. And he has been hunting for too long. That is the disease, and it is not a metaphor. In Yharnam, the more you hunt, the more you drink of the blood, and the more blood you spill, and the longer you stay out in the fog, the less of you comes back. The hunters know this. It is spoken about the way people speak about drink. Some hunters go blood drunk. Their eyes stop distinguishing beast from man. They keep swinging, because swinging is the only thing left that feels like themselves. Gascoigne is at the far end of that road on the night you meet him. He is blind. Not physically. He tells you so himself, in a voice that is trying very hard to sound like a warning and not like a plea. He cannot see clearly anymore. He asks you not to make him do this, and then he does it anyway. The fight in the graveyard is one of the first hard things Yharnam asks of you, and it is deliberately, cruelly ordinary. He is not a monster. He is a man with an axe and a gun, and better technique than you have. He fights the way a professional fights. He is not screaming or gibbering, he is working. And then, partway through, he stops being a man, and the coat splits, and the thing that comes out of it is enormous, and furred, and very fast. And it howls. There is a way to interrupt this. There is a music box. Somewhere before all this, a small girl found you in the street outside her house and asked you for help. The mother went out looking for her father, and neither of them came back. She has a music box that her father gave her, and she asks you to bring it to him if you find him, because he will hear it, and he will remember, and he will come home. She is right. That is the thing that undoes you. She is completely right. If you play the music box in the graveyard, at the right moment, Gascoigne stops. The huge and terrible shape of him goes still, and he clutches at his head, and he says something to himself that is not for you, and for one long second, somewhere down under all that fur and blood and church doctrine, a father is standing in a graveyard, hearing his daughter's music, and trying to remember his own name. And then it passes, and the fight resumes, and you finish it, because there is nothing else to do. Afterward, if you look, you can find his wife. She went out into the night to look for him. She did not have to look far. I am not going to describe that. We do not need it. You know what happened, and it happened long ago, and it is over. What I want you to keep instead is the second in the graveyard where the music was playing, because that second is the argument the whole game is making. There is something under the beast. It is buried very deep, and it is losing, but it is there, and it hears music, and for one moment it remembers being loved. That is Father Gascoigne. A tired man who went out to work one too many nights. One more thing about him, because it changes the shape of the fight if you know it. Gascoigne was a foreigner. He came to Yharnam from somewhere else, as a clergyman, and everything he became happened here. He did not arrive as a monster. He arrived as a man with a wife and children and a vocation, and Yharnam gave him a coat and a weapon and a schedule of nights, and it kept him working until there was nothing left. He is, in other words, exactly what you are. You also came from outside. You also lay down for the blood. You are also out in the streets tonight with a hunter's tools, killing things that were people this morning. Every mechanical thing that Gascoigne can do, you can do. He is not a boss the way a dragon is a boss. He is a preview. That is why the fight in the graveyard feels the way it feels, and why people remember it for years. It is not hard because his moveset is complicated. It is hard because it is the first time the game shows you your own future and asks you to beat it to death with a stick. And you do. And then you keep hunting. Let the fog cover the stones now. Let it go soft and grey and formless. Let the graveyard go quiet now. The fog is settling between the stones. Nothing moves. Rest the little girl and the red jewelled brooch. She is standing behind a window in the middle of the night, and she wants her parents back. We do not know her name. The game never gives it. Her sister is Viola's daughter, and her mother is Viola, and her father is Gascoigne, and she is perhaps 6 or 7 years old, and she is alone in a house in a city that is currently coming apart. When you speak to her, she is polite. That is what gets you. She is well brought up. She asks if you have seen her mother, and she describes her the way a child describes a parent, by the things that matter to a child. A white ribbon. She wears a white ribbon. And a red jewelled brooch. And she gives you the music box, and she asks you to bring her father home. Now, you have been to the graveyard. You know exactly what you are going to find out there in the fog, and you know exactly what condition it is in, and you know that when you go back to that little window, you are going to be standing in front of a child with your hands full of the answer. This is the cruelest small thing in Bloodborne, and it is cruel because it is optional, and because it is entirely made of choices. You can find the red jewelled brooch. It is out there. It is where you would expect it to be. And you can take it back to her, and you can give it to her, and she will understand instantly what it means. Because children always do. And she will cry, and she will thank you, and she will go back inside. Or you can lie. You can send her somewhere safe instead, to the chapel, and hope that she gets there. Or you can send her to Iosefka's clinic, and I have already told you what is in Iosefka's clinic. Every path is bad. Some are worse. And the game will not tell you which is which until it is far too late to choose again. If you send her out into the streets, she does not always arrive. There is a version of this night where you come back later, and there is a large ribbon, or a small one, and no child, and the pieces of what happened are left on the ground for you to assemble yourself. I am going to stop there, because this is a sleep video, and because I think you have already understood, and understanding is enough. Here is what I want to leave you with instead. That little girl is the last uncorrupted thing in Yharnam. She is the only character in the entire city who has not drunk the blood, has not joined the church, has not made a bargain, has not gone looking for transcendence. She just wants her mum and dad to come home. And the world she lives in has no mechanism, none at all, for granting that. Yharnam sold immortality and cured plagues, and reached up into the sky and touched something, and it cannot get one child's parents back through the front door. That is the whole indictment. It fits in a window. Breathe out. Let the street go dark. She has been asleep for a very long time now, one way or another, and there is nothing more that can be asked of her. Eileen the Crow, who hunts the hunters. She is standing on a rooftop, or under an arch, or on a step above you, and she is dressed like a bird. Black feathered cloak. A beaked mask, long and curved, the mask of a plague doctor filtered through something older and stranger. She carries 2 blades that fold and unfold and cut on the return. She moves like nothing else in Yharnam moves, which is to say lightly, which is to say without any wasted effort at all. Eileen the Crow is the answer to a question that Yharnam does not like being asked out loud. The question is this: if the hunt is what breaks a hunter, then what happens to the hunters who break? The answer is Eileen. She is a hunter of hunters. That is her actual title and her actual job. When a hunter goes blood drunk, when the fog gets into them and the killing stops meaning anything, and they start walking the streets of Yharnam looking for something to swing at, they become a problem no beast ever was, because they are still clever and still armed and still know all the shortcuts. And somebody has to go and stop them, and the church in its wisdom has never wanted to do that job itself, so Eileen does it. Alone, wearing the mask of a carrion bird, which is exactly the right symbol, and she chose it on purpose. She is not there to save anyone. She is there to clean up. And she is old. This is the part that matters. Eileen is not a wraith or a monster or a cosmic anything. She is an aging woman doing the hardest work in the city, and she knows she is past her prime, and she is doing it anyway, because there is no one else. When you first meet her, she tells you, more or less, that you should stay out of her way, that the job she is on is not yours, that she has one left in her. If you talk to her enough, she softens. Not much. Just enough. She starts calling you a good hunter. She gives you her rune, and the rune is about caution, about knowing when to walk away from a fight you cannot win, which is the only piece of wisdom she has to pass on, and which she has clearly bought at full price. She tells you to go home. She tells you that if you can get out of this city, you should. And then, because Eileen has never once taken her own advice, she goes to do the last job. You will find her against a wall, later, slumped breathing, badly. She will have gone after a hunter who is younger and faster and much worse than she is, and she will have lost. And if you are there, and if you are willing, you can finish what she started. Or you can get there first, and take the fight from her, and she will live. That is the strange grace at the centre of Eileen the Crow. She is one of the only people in Bloodborne who can actually be saved. Not redeemed, not transformed, not ascended, just kept alive. She survives if you do the work she was too old to do. And afterwards she sits somewhere quiet and she is tired and she is grateful and she is still unmistakably herself. In a world where everyone is becoming something else, staying yourself is the rarest possible outcome. I want to say something about the mask, because the mask matters. The crow is a carrion bird. It comes after everything else is finished. It does not hunt, it cleans, and it has no illusions about the dignity of its work, and it has no interest in being thanked. Eileen chose that. Somebody at some point sat down and decided that the person whose job it is to kill broken hunters should dress as the bird that eats the dead, and I do not think that was the church's decision. The church would have chosen something with a halo on it. That was hers. It is the most honest costume in Yharnam. Everybody else in this city is dressed as something better than they are. The church wears vestments. The hunters wear the coats of physicians. The executioners wear crowns. The choir wears the trappings of scholarship. And Eileen goes out in the feathers of a scavenger. Because she is a scavenger, and she is at peace with it, and she is not going to let anyone tell her a prettier story about what she does. That clarity is what keeps her alive. She never once believes her own myth, because she never made one. Let her rest. Let the feathers settle. Hold that. It is a warm thing. Now let it settle. She is sitting down. She is safe. The blades are folded. Nothing else is required of her tonight. Rest here with her a moment. There is no hurry. Henryk, the friend she has to kill. The hunter Eileen goes after has a name, and the name is Henryk. He is not much to look at. That is deliberate. He is an old hunter in a plain coat, with a plain hat, carrying a plain saw and a plain pistol. He looks like the equipment you started with. He looks like what you will become if you keep going. There is no crown, no cosmic mark, no special weapon. Henryk is what a hunter looks like when the hunters finished with him and left the shell walking. He was Gascoigne's partner. That is the thread you pull, and the whole thing comes apart. The two of them work together. There are hints of it scattered around the city like receipts. They hunted the same streets on the same nights for years, and when Gascoigne came apart in that graveyard, Henryk was somewhere out in the fog, and the news of it reached him, and something in him closed. And so Henryk went blood drunk. Not in a night. It does not happen in a night. It happens the way rust happens. And now he walks through Yharnam killing anything he finds, and among the things he finds are people, and this is why Eileen has to go and stop him. Because that is her job. Because there is no one else. And because she knows him. The game does not say this in a cutscene. It says it the way Bloodborne says everything, which is by leaving the evidence lying around and trusting that you will pick it up. Eileen and Henryk are hunters of the same generation. They came up together. Whatever the three of them were to each other, Eileen and Henryk and Gascoigne, it was long enough ago that it happened in a Yharnam that still worked. So picture what she is actually doing. Eileen, old, tired, half a step slower than she was, standing in a doorway in the fog, waiting for a man she has known most of her life to come round the corner so she can kill him. Because he is sick. Because the sickness is the job. Because she is the only person in the city who does this work, and there is no version of tonight where somebody else goes instead. She does not complain about it. She does not ask you for help. She tells you, in fact, to keep out of it. And when you fight Henryk, or when you fight beside her against him, or when you find her afterward against a wall with her breath coming wrong, that is what you are looking at. Not a monster. A friendship that ended badly, being closed out by the only person willing to do the paperwork. Henryk himself never speaks. He grunts. He breathes. He swings. Whatever was in there is not answering anymore. And that is exactly the point, because Gascoigne could still hear a music box and Henryk cannot hear anything. There is one detail I love, and it is very small, and it is very Bloodborne. Sometimes you can find Henryk sitting down, not attacking, just sitting, somewhere quiet, in a corner of the city, doing nothing at all. And if you leave him alone, he keeps sitting there, which means somewhere under all of it, there is still enough of a man left to get tired, and to want to sit down. That is all. That is everything Henryk has left, and it is more than most. Let him sit. Leave the corner. Walk on into the fog, and let it close behind you, softly, the way fog does. Rest the afflicted beggar who asks very politely. He is sitting on the ground by the side of the road in a place you have to go out of your way to find, and he is wrapped up in filthy bandages, and he calls out to you. He is one of the survivors. That is how he presents himself. He is hurt. He is frightened. He has been out in the streets on the worst night in the history of Yharnam, and he has not been eaten yet. And he would very much like to go somewhere safe. And would you please, kind stranger, tell him where he might go? His voice is desperate and warm and human. He calls you a good person. He thanks you sincerely. He shuffles off into the dark toward whatever refuge you have sent him to, and he keeps thanking you as he goes. You know already. I can hear it. You knew the moment I said the word bandages. He is infected. Whatever is under those wraps is not a wound, it is a process, and it is not finished. And when you next arrive at the safe place you sent him to, whether that is the chapel where the frightened people are gathered, or the clinic where the doctor who is not a doctor is waiting, he is not there. Something else is there. And the people who were there are not. I am going to tell you the important part quickly, and then we are going to move away from it, because the details are not what you came for, and you do not need them in your head at 2 a.m. The important part is that the beggar did not deceive you. Not exactly. He did not know, or he half knew, or he knew and it did not matter, or the thing that he was becoming used the last of his human voice to get itself somewhere with people in it. All of these readings are available, and none of them is confirmed. That is the honest position, and I would rather leave it honest than tidy. What is not in doubt is the lesson the city keeps teaching, over and over, in different fonts. Yharnam punishes kindness. Not always, not everywhere, but often enough, and unpredictably enough, that the only people left alive in this city are the ones who stopped opening the door. That is why the citizens shout at you through their shutters. That is why nobody trusts a knock. It is not paranoia, it is data. And the truly awful part, the part I want to say clearly and then set down, is that the game does not want you to become that person. Every single time it offers you the choice again, and every single time it makes the generous choice a gamble. And most players, playing honestly, take the gamble anyway, again and again, long after they know better. There is something almost holy in that, if you turn it a certain way in the light. All right. That is enough. Push it away. The road is empty now. The beggar is long gone, and so is everyone he ever hurt. There is nothing left of that on this street, only lamplight, and the small sound of your own footsteps on wet stone, and no reason to go anywhere quickly. Settle in. Let it get quiet. Djura, the old man on the tower. Old Yharnam is burning, and it has been burning for years, and there is a man with a Gatling gun on a tower who would like you to please go away. Let us take a moment with old Yharnam, because Djura does not make sense without it. Down beneath the newer city there is an older one, and it is a ruin, and it did not become a ruin by accident. The beast plague started there, Whatever the blood was doing to Yharnam, it did it first and worst in that district, and the Healing Church made a decision. The decision was to burn it. Hunters went down into old Yharnam and they killed everything in it. Not the beasts. Everything. Because you could not tell, and because there was no time, and because a city that has decided to be afraid will always find someone willing to hold the torch. The district was put to the flame, and the survivors were hunted through the burning streets, and by the end of it, old Yharnam was a cinder full of things that used to be people. Djura was one of the hunters who did that, and afterward he did not go home. That is the part that makes him one of the great characters in this game. Djura went down into old Yharnam as an executioner and he came out of it as a warden, and he has been sitting up on that tower ever since, alone, in the smoke, with a heavy gun, protecting the beasts from the hunters. Because he changed his mind. You climb up through the burnt district, and the beasts come at you and you kill them. Because that is what you do, and up on the tower an old man watches you do it. And if you go up to him, he tells you to stop. He tells you these creatures were people. He tells you they are not hurting anyone down here. They are only living out whatever is left of their lives in the ruin of the place they were born. And you have come down here to kill them for sport, and you should leave. And if you do not leave, he will kill you. He will do it with a Gatling gun, from a height, and he will not enjoy it. There is a way to talk to him first. If you find your way around the back, and come at him from an angle where he cannot immediately shoot you, he will speak to you like a person. He will make his case. He is not raving. He is the single most morally coherent human being in Bloodborne, and he lives in a burnt ruin surrounded by monsters, because that is the only place his conscience could find room to stand. You can leave him alone. You can walk out of old Yharnam and never touch a thing. He will let you. Or you can kill him too, and take his hat, and go on your way. The game does not comment. It never does. It just makes sure that if you do it, you cannot pretend you did not know. Djura is the ghost of Yharnam's conscience, and the reason he lives up a tower is that in Yharnam. That is the only altitude where a conscience is safe. And I want to be fair to the difficulty of what he is asking, because it would be easy to make Djura simply correct and leave it there, and he is not simply correct. The beasts of old Yharnam are dangerous. They will kill you. They will kill anybody who comes down there, and some of them do come down there, and some of them do not come back. Djura's position is not that the beasts are harmless. His position is that they are not going anywhere, that they are contained, that they are living out the last of whatever they have in the place they were born, and that going down there to hunt them for the pleasure of it is not defence, it is recreation. That is a genuinely difficult argument, and the game gives it to a man with a machine gun in a burnt-out district, and then it gives you the option to kill him for it. What makes it land is that he used to agree with you. That is the fact that keeps me thinking about him. He did the killing. He carried the torch. And somewhere in the middle of that campaign, standing in a burning street, he looked at something that was screaming and understood in the way you only ever understand these things once, what he was actually doing. You cannot come back from that and go home. There is no home to go back to. So he went up a tower. Let the smoke drift. Let the fires burn low. Let the smoke drift. Let the guns go silent. He is up there still, in the version of the night where you left him alone, keeping watch over things that cannot thank him. That is a good place to leave a man. Rest now. Alfred, the cheerful executioner. He is leaning against a wall at the top of a flight of stairs, in armour, in a wide hat, and he is delighted to meet you. Alfred is the most enthusiastic person in Yharnam. That is not a compliment, and it is not entirely an insult. He greets you like an old friend on the first night you meet him. He is warm. He is funny, in a broad, boisterous way. He wants to know how you are getting on. He explains things to you cheerfully and at length. He gives you gifts, and the gifts are good ones, and he does not want anything in return except your company and a shared understanding that the two of you are on the same side. He is a hunter of vile bloods. He tells you so immediately and proudly, the way a man tells you his profession at a party. Now the vile bloods. We will get to them properly. But for now, the short version. There is a noble house east of the city, a castle on a cliff, and the blood of that house is a different blood, and the church has decided that this blood is an abomination. Long ago, a man named Logarius took an army of executioners to that castle and did what men with armies do, and the church has spent the centuries since calling that a holy act. Alfred is Logarius's spiritual heir. He is a fan. He is not an executioner himself. Not really, not formally. He is a volunteer. He has appointed himself to a war that ended before he was born, and he is fighting it with tremendous good cheer. You help him. Of course you do. He is so likeable. You tell him what you have found, you point him toward the castle, and he thanks you with genuine joy, and off he goes. And then, later, you find him. He is in a room in that castle, standing over the remains of the last vile Blood Queen's shrine, and he is not laughing anymore. He is speaking in a rising voice about purity and about vermin. And the room is a mess, and the mess is what is left of a woman, and Alfred is stamping on it. The transformation happens in a single conversation. The friendly man on the stairs and the thing in that room are the same person, and there was never any change in him at all. That is the horror. He did not lose himself. He arrived. Everything he was, the warmth, the generosity, the good humour, the gifts, all of it was sitting on top of a certainty that some people are vermin, and that stamping on vermin is a service to God. And when the moment came to act on the certainty, the warmth did not have to go anywhere. It just stopped being relevant. You can kill him then. He will fight you happily, still calling you a friend, in a voice that has gone somewhere you cannot follow. Alfred is the most frightening NPC in Bloodborne, and he does not have a single supernatural quality. No transformation, no cosmic mark, no blood drunkenness. He is just a man with a cause, and the cause is old, and he is very sure about it, and he is having a wonderful time. We have all met Alfred. That is why he lands. And it is worth being precise about what he is, because the temptation is to say he goes mad, and he does not go mad. Madness would be a comfort. Madness would mean the friendly man on the staircase was real, and something broke him. But nothing breaks Alfred. He is exactly as coherent in that room as he was on those stairs. His sentences make sense. His reasoning is intact. He remembers you fondly, and he still considers you a friend, and he would be genuinely happy to talk to you afterward, once he has finished. What he has is not a disease, it is a permission structure. Somewhere long ago a church told a young man that a certain category of person was not really a person, and that removing them was a sacrament, and Alfred took that in and built his whole warm, generous personality on top of it, and the structure held perfectly, and it never once had to be examined. Nothing in his life ever tested it. That is the only difference between Alfred and everyone he ever charmed. So when the door finally opens, and there is a vile blood on the other side of it, no transformation is required. He simply steps through a door that has always been standing open in him, and he does what he has always known he would do. That is enough. Close the door. Leave the room dark and cold and long empty. All right, set it down. The castle is quiet. The snow is falling. The room is empty now, and has been empty for a very long time, and there is nobody left in it to be certain about anything. Breathe out. Let the stairs go dark. He is not on them anymore. Arianna, the woman nobody would shelter. She stands in a doorway in a narrow alley in the cathedral ward, in a red dress, in the cold. She is not hiding. That is the first thing. Every other living soul in Yharnam is behind a locked door with the shutters drawn, and Arianna is standing outside in the open, with her arms folded, watching the street. You speak to her, and she is dry, and she is amused, and she is entirely unafraid. She says something to the effect that a night like this is bad for business. She calls herself what the city calls her. She does not flinch from it. She has clearly heard every insult Yharnam can produce, and she stopped bleeding from them a long time ago. Arianna is a prostitute, and the reason she is out in the street on the night of the hunt is that no door in this city has ever been opened to her. That is her whole situation, and it is delivered so lightly that most players miss it. Yharnam has decided she is unclean. Not because of the blood, not because of the beasts, but because of the ordinary and boring cruelty of a religious city with a caste system. So when the hunt comes, and the doors are barred, hers are barred against her too, and she stands in an alley in a red dress and makes a joke about it. If you send her somewhere safe, she goes. She is grateful, and she does not make a production of it. And in the chapel, or wherever you have sent her, she becomes one of the few genuinely comforting presences in the game. She will give you her blood, if you ask, and her blood is remarkable. It heals better than anything you can buy. She offers it freely and gently, and the moment is one of the only human warmths in the whole city. I need to tell you the rest, and I am going to be brief, and then we are going to leave and not come back. Something happens to Arianna late in the night, if the night goes a certain way. It is connected to the blood and to the Great Ones, and to what the cosmos does to women in Yharnam when it is looking for a mother. It is not violent, it is not a fight, it is quiet, and it is upsetting, and if you go and look you will find her sitting in the dark with something small and terrible beside her, and she will be weeping, and there will be nothing at all that you can do. You do not have to go and look. That is worth saying. That scene is optional. The game will let you leave her be in the chapel, warm and safe and cheerfully unrepentant, and that is a valid ending for her. I would like to leave her there. Let us do that. In the chapel, out of the wind, with a candle burning, she is fine. She is bored. She is making a joke about the priests to anybody who will listen. Rest, Adella, the nun who loved too fiercely. She is another survivor you can save, and she is a nun. Adella is frightened when you find her. Sincerely, ordinarily frightened, in the way anybody would be. She thanks God for you. She calls you her saviour. She goes to the chapel when you send her there, and she sits down among the others, and she starts, immediately and quietly, to fall in love with you. That is not a metaphor. It is the actual arc. Every time you come back to the chapel, Adella is more attached. She wants to help. She wants to be useful. She offers you her blood, and her blood is good, and she gives it to you with an intensity that is a little too warm for the room. She asks if you will come back. She asks if there is anything else she can do, and if you have also saved Arianna, and if Arianna is in the chapel too, and if you take Arianna's blood instead, Adella notices. Adella notices everything. She says nothing at first. She is a nun. She has a lifetime of practice in the arrangement of her face. But her blood, she tells you, is no longer as pure as it was. She feels she has failed you. She has become impure. And she is sorry. And she cannot give you what you need. And she says all of this in a tone that would freeze a room. And then, if the night goes the way it can go, Arianna is found dead in the chapel, and there is a nun standing near her with an expression of profound peace. Adella's arc is the most human horror in Bloodborne, and it has no monsters in it at all. It is jealousy. It is a woman with almost nothing who is offered one relationship, one person who came for her in the dark and who cannot bear to share it. She dresses the murder in the language of purity because that language was handed to her by a church, and it fits, and it means she does not have to look at what she is doing. You can prevent it. Send them to different places. Keep them apart. The game does not tell you that this is necessary, and most people find out too late. Or you can never save either of them, and never know that any of this exists. That is the design philosophy of this entire city, by the way, and I think it is worth naming. Bloodborne buries its most devastating human stories in optional content, behind choices you did not know you were making, and it never once tells you afterward what you did. Yharnam does not do consequences, it does aftermaths. You walk into a room and the aftermath is already there, and it is yours. And I want to be careful not to make Adella a villain, because I do not think she is one, and I think the game is quite deliberate about that. She is a woman who has spent her entire life inside an institution that told her what to want and then punished her for wanting it. She has been taught that her body is a resource, that her purity is her value, that her blood belongs to the church, and that the greatest thing she can do with her existence is to be of use to someone worthier than herself. And then, on the worst night in history in a burning city, a stranger comes out of the dark and saves her life and asks nothing at all in return. And for the first time, someone wants something from her that she gets to choose to give. Of course she cannot bear to share it. She has never had anything before. That is not a monster. That is a person, made carefully, over decades, by people who thought they were doing God's work, and then left in a room with the one thing she was never allowed to have. Let the candles gutter. Let the chapel go dark and cool and still. All right. That is a heavy one. Put it down. The chapel is quiet. The candles are burning low. Whatever happened there is centuries gone, and the room is empty and cool and dark and utterly still. Breathe. Slow. We have a long way to go, and no reason to rush a single step of it. The chapel dweller and the lonely old dear. There is a chapel in the cathedral ward with a fire burning in it, and a man in a hood sitting by the door. He is the reason the chapel is a refuge. He is the one who tells you in a low, tired voice that anyone who needs shelter can come here, and that he will not turn anyone away, and that this is what the place is for. He does not ask who they are. He does not ask what they have done. He does not ask whether they are sick. He is called the Chapel Dweller, and he has no other name, and he is the closest thing Yharnam has to a saint. Which is why the city breaks him, because you send people to the chapel, and some of the people you send are not what they say they are. And one night you come back and the fire is still burning, and the survivors are gone. Not all at once, it happens by degrees. The chapel empties out, and the man in the hood keeps sitting by the door, and his voice gets quieter, and he asks you, without accusation, what happened. He never stops offering shelter. That is the detail that guts me. Even after it has gone wrong, even after his open door has cost the lives of the people it was meant to protect, he keeps the door open. He does not learn the lesson Yharnam is trying to teach. He is the only person in the city who refuses to learn it. And upstairs, in the same building, there is an old woman. The lonely old dear, the game calls her. She sits in a corner and she does not really understand what is happening. She talks about how she is glad the hunt is on, because it means the beasts will be dealt with. She talks about the good old days. She is warm and a little confused and completely perfectly ordinary, and being ordinary in Yharnam is a kind of miracle. She gives you an incense to keep the beasts away. It does not work. Not the way she thinks it does. But she gives it to you the way a grandmother gives you a scarf, because she wants you to be safe out there, and because that is the only kind of help she has left to give. The two of them, the Dweller and the Old Dear, are what Yharnam had before all this. Before the blood and the church and the Great Ones. A man who takes people in and an old woman who worries about you going out without something warm. That is the civilization the Cosmos ate. You cannot save them. Not properly. The night takes the chapel eventually, the way it takes everything. But for a while, in the middle of it, there is a room with a fire in it, and a man at the door, and an old woman by the wall, and people come in out of the cold. Let us stay there for a bit. That is a good room. The fire is low and steady. Somebody is speaking quietly on the other side of the hall. The stone is cool, but the air near the flames is warm, and the door is shut against the fog, and for this 1 hour, in this one room, nothing is going to happen to anyone. Rest here. Sleep here if you like. The door is being watched by a man who will not turn you away. Annalise, Queen of the Vile Bloods. Far to the east of Yharnam, past the woods, past the lake, up on a cliff over a frozen wasteland, there is a castle. And in the castle there is a throne, and on the throne there is a woman in a red gown with a cage over her head. She has been sitting there for centuries. Her name is Annalise, and she is the Queen of Cainhurst, and she is the last of the Vile Bloods, and she cannot die. This is the story, told plainly. A long time ago, a woman of Cainhurst went into the old labyrinth beneath Yharnam, into the tombs of the Pumerians, and she came back with something. Blood. Not the church's blood. Older blood, stranger blood, taken from a source the church did not control. And she brought it home, and she gave it to her house, and the house drank, and the house became something new. The healing church called this heresy. The church, which is built entirely on the same act performed at a different address, called this heresy, and so they sent Logarius, and Logarius sent executioners, and Cainhurst was put to the sword. The nobles were slaughtered in their own halls, the castle was left to the snow. And Annalise, who could not be killed, was dealt with in the only way available to a man who cannot kill a queen. She was sealed. She was crowned with an iron cage and left on her throne in an empty castle, alive, aware and alone, for as long as the world lasted. Logarius sat down at the top of the tower to guard her, and he stayed there until he was a dry husk. And he is still there, and he still gets up when someone comes near. That is the crime. That is what the good and holy church did. Not a war. A permanent, patient, silent punishment, with a guard on the door, forever. And when you finally climb the tower and cut Logarius down and take his crown and go into her chamber, and she speaks to you for the first time in an age, she is not raving. She is not a monster. She is composed and lofty and immensely tired, and she has plans. She wants a child. She wants to rebuild her line. She is not repentant, and she should not be, and she asks you to serve her. And she means it as an honour. She is also, quietly, dangerous. Her covenant asks its members to hunt the living for blood, and I will not pretend she is gentle. But then everything in this world asks its followers to kill somebody. At least Annalise has the manners to say so out loud. And here is the thing that makes her terrible to think about at night. If you fail to protect her, someone comes and destroys her, and she is not gone. She reassembles. She cannot be released. She just comes back and sits down again on the throne in the empty castle in the snow. That is Annalise. Not evil. Not cursed. Sentenced. And I want to sit for a moment on the strangeness of a punishment that has no end and no witness. Every other atrocity in Yharnam eventually finishes. The burning of old Yharnam ends when there is nothing left to burn. The experiments finish when the subject stops responding. The hunts end at dawn, in theory, if dawn ever comes. Suffering, in most of this world, is at least the kind of thing that runs out. What was done to Annalise does not run out. It was designed not to. Somebody looked at a woman who could not die and thought carefully about the problem and arrived at a solution, and the solution was to leave her conscious and seated and alone in a cold room in perpetuity and to post a guard. And then everybody who did that died, and the world went on, and the church forgot about her, and the castle filled with snow, and she kept sitting there, through the plague, through the hunts, through the fall of Yharnam and everything that came after, in a chair and a crown of iron, with the wind coming through a broken window, thinking, there is a version of horror that involves teeth, and there is a version that involves time. Cainhurst is the second kind, and it is much quieter, and it stays with you longer. Let the snow fall. Let the room go dim. Let it settle now. The snow is coming down on the courtyard outside her window. The castle is very quiet. There is no wind. The flakes fall in the dark and land without a sound, and they have been doing that for a very long time, and they will keep doing it long after we have gone. Rest the bloody crow of Cainhurst. Somewhere in the city, on a night when the moon has gone strange, a hunter is waiting for you in a chapel doorway, and he has been looking forward to this. He is called the Bloody Crow of Cainhurst. His real name is Henryk, which is not the Henryk we spoke about. It is a coincidence the game seems entirely happy to leave lying there, unexplained, like a knife on a table. He is dressed as a crow. Feathers, beaked mask, the same silhouette as Eileen. And that is the point, and it is a horrible point, and it takes a second to arrive. He is a hunter of hunters. He is Eileen's colleague, or her successor, or her rival, depending on how you want to read it. He does the same job she does. He goes out into the fog and he kills hunters who have gone blood drunk. And he does it in the name of keeping the city safe. And he has gone blood drunk himself. That is the joke, and it is a joke Yharnam has been building toward for the entire game. The mechanism that was supposed to catch the failures has failed. The immune system has turned. The man who hunts the mad hunters is now a mad hunter, and there is nobody above him in the hierarchy. Because there is no hierarchy. Because Yharnam is a city that dealt with every one of its problems by giving one exhausted person a knife and telling them to go and sort it out. He fights like a nightmare. Fast, aggressive, endlessly aggressive, with a blade in one hand and a pistol in the other, and no interest whatsoever in defending himself. He does not need to defend himself. He does not care what happens to him. That is what makes him so hard. He is a hunter who has stopped valuing his own survival, and there is nothing more dangerous in the entire game, and he is the one who kills Eileen if you let him. That is the fight you can walk in on. That is the alley where you find her, if you are late. Two crows in the fog, one of them old and careful and doing her job, one of them young and blood drunk and doing something that only looks like the same job from a distance. She goes to that fight knowing what he is. She goes anyway. That is what she does. If you go with her, you can save her. If you go alone and beat him alone, you save her too, and she never has to know how close it came. Either way, the bloody crow ends up on the stones in the fog, and the feathers scatter, and the mask comes off, and underneath it, as always, there is just a man. That is what is under all of them. That is the thing this whole city is built to make you forget. Alright, enough. The fog is closing. The alley is empty. Nobody is waiting for you in any doorway. Let your shoulders drop. Nothing here needs you awake. Patches the spider, who is very sorry about the hole. There is a voice in the dark that is trying with genuine effort to be your friend. It is a strange voice, too smooth, too pleased with itself. It talks about how happy it is to meet a fellow traveller, and about how the two of you have so much in common, and about the noble pursuit of knowledge, and about how there is something wonderful just ahead, and you really should go and take a look. There is a hole. There is always a hole. Patches has been in every one of these games in one form or another, and he is a joke. And the joke is very old, and the joke is that the only reliably evil thing in any of these worlds is a friendly man who wants you to stand near an edge. But in Bloodborne, he is different, and the difference is upsetting. In Bloodborne, Patches is a spider, not a man in a mask, not a man with a spider motif, a large spider with something like a face, hanging in the dark in a nightmare, speaking to you in a warm and cultured human voice about the joys of insight. He was a scholar once. He was a member of the choir, or associated with them, or at least he was in the room, and he pursued the higher knowledge that Yharnam's academics chased so hard, and the knowledge did what it does to everybody. It changed the shape of him. And here is what haunts me about Bloodborne's version of Patches, and I mean this. He is completely unbothered. He got what he wanted. He is not screaming. He is not begging to be human again. He is up there in the corner of the nightmare with too many legs and a voice like a friendly professor, and he is content, and he still enjoys pushing people into pits, and he genuinely believes he is doing them a favour. Because after all, look at how well it turned out for him. That is the most disturbing sentence in this whole video, and I said it very casually. Look at how well it turned out for him. Because Bloodborne asks a question that most horror never asks. It asks what happens if the transformation works. If you go looking for the Eldritch and you find it and it takes you apart and puts you back together as something inhuman, and you are fine with the result. Not mad, not suffering, just fine, and interested in things you did not use to be interested in, and no longer particularly attached to being a man. Every other character in this story is broken by what happened to them. Patches is the one who is having a nice time. He is also, and I want to say this because it is true, quite funny. The bit works. He lies to you with such transparent enthusiasm that you almost want to fall in the hole out of politeness. There is something restful about a villain who wants nothing from you except a laugh at your expense, and when you finally get to the bottom of the hole he pushed you into, and you look up, he is gone, and you can hear him somewhere above you, delighted with himself. Fine, let him have it. He waited a long time for that. Let us climb back out. Slowly, there is no rush, and the floor is solid, and the dark down here is only dark. Rest, Micolash, host of the nightmare. You will hear him before you see him. Everyone does. He is shouting. Somewhere ahead of you, in a place that is not a place, a man is shouting about the sky and about the cosmos and about how the two are one, and his voice cracks with joy, and he keeps going, and it does not stop. Micolash is the head of the School of Mensis, and he is having the best night of his life. Mensis was one of the factions that split off from Bergenworth, the old college where all of this started. When the School of Scholars broke apart, one group became the church, and one group became the choir, and one group went east into the ruins of Yharnam and became something worse. The choir wanted to reach the Great Ones by ascending. Mensis wanted to reach them by dreaming. That is the difference. And it is the whole difference. Micolash decided that the way to contact a cosmic entity was to go to sleep and stay there, to build a machinery of dreams, to wrap a human head in iron and hook it to something enormous and go under, deliberately, permanently, and knock. And they succeeded. They actually did it. That is the thing about the School of Mensis that people underrate. They were not deluded. They were right. They made contact. Something answered. And what answered was so far beyond them that Yharnam stopped being a district and started being a nightmare, and the people in it stopped being people and the sky above them tore open, and Micolash has been in there ever since, running down corridors in a cage, laughing. He is the only person in Bloodborne who got exactly what he prayed for. When you fight him, he does not fight you. Not really. He runs. He calls out for you to follow. He summons things and then runs some more, and he is shouting the entire time. And what he is shouting is essentially a prayer. And the prayer is that he might be granted eyes. Eyes on the inside. The ability to see. Because he can feel that there is something there, right at the edge of what he can perceive, and he cannot quite make it out, and it is driving him wild with longing. That is the most human thing anyone says in this game, and it is being screamed by a man in a birdcage in a dream. Micolash is not evil, in the way that Alfred is evil. He is not cruel. He is a scholar who wanted to know, and he wanted it so badly that he took his entire school into a nightmare to find out, and now he is stuck there, and he is not even sorry. And he is so happy. That is what stays with you. The pure, delirious happiness of a man who has broken the world open and is standing in the gap, waiting for something enormous to notice him. Something does notice him. That is the trouble. Something always does. And there is a detail in his dream that I find gentler than it has any right to be, and I want to give it to you before we leave. Micolash is not alone in there. The nightmare of Mensis is full of his students. They are still in it, in their cages, in their iron heads, dreaming the dream he taught them to dream. He did not go into the dark by himself. He took a school with him, and they went willingly, because he was persuasive, and because the promise was enormous, and because they were young and clever and hungry for something the world was not offering them. That is what a school is, when you strip it down. A group of people who agree to believe the same impossible thing at the same time. Hard enough to make it real. Mensis believed hard enough. And it worked. And now they are all in there together, forever. And their teacher is running down the corridors, calling out to something that will never answer in a language he could understand. He is not lonely. That is the thing. He got the thing he wanted, and he got to share it. And if you could ask him tonight whether it was worth it, he would not even understand the question. Let it go quiet now. Let the corridors empty. But that is done now. The corridors are silent. The cage is empty. The dream has moved on, and there is nobody left in it shouting. Breathe. Let the shouting fade out. Let it get very quiet. Master Willem, who stopped speaking. At the top of Byrgenwerth, in a chair facing a lake, there is an old man who will not answer you. He is the beginning of everything. Every horror in this story, every death, every transformation, every locked door in Yharnam, begins with this frail old scholar sitting in a chair by a window, looking out at the water. Master Willem founded Byrgenwerth. He was the teacher. He was the one who took a group of clever young academics down into the old tombs beneath the city, into the labyrinth, into the ruins of a civilization nobody remembered, and he was the one who found the blood. And he was the one who, having found it, said no. That is the part everyone forgets. Willem understood what he had touched, and he pulled back. His conclusion was that the human mind cannot handle what is out there, that our senses are too poor, that our thoughts are too small. He believed that if humanity was to reach any higher, it had to change, and the change had to come from the inside, from the mind. Eyes. He wanted eyes on the inside. He wanted more capacity to perceive, not more capacity to consume. His student disagreed. Lorenz took the blood and took half the school with him and founded the healing church and gave the blood to the city, and everything else follows from that. The plague, the hunts, the burning of old Yharnam, every single thing. And Willem stayed at Byrgenwerth, and he stopped teaching, and he sat down in his chair, and he has been sitting there ever since. When you find him, he does not attack you. He does not run. He does not explain anything. He is very old, and something is wrong with his eyes, and he mutters the same few phrases over and over, and the phrases are a warning. And the warning is at least a century too late for anyone to use. You can kill him. He will not stop you. He barely notices you. That is a strange kind of horror, not violence. Futility, the man who could have prevented all of this, alive, present, in the room, unable to say anything except the same 6 words he has been saying since before you were born. Bergenworth is very beautiful, by the way. That is the last cruelty. It is a quiet little college on the shore of a moonlit lake, with lily pads on the water and a soft wind in the reeds, and it is the most peaceful place in the game, and it is where the end of the world was designed. And I think it is worth saying clearly that Willem was right. That is the uncomfortable thing about him, and it is why he cannot simply be filed away as a doddering old man in a chair. Everything he warned about happened. The blood did exactly what he said it would do. The people who took it did become beasts, and the institution built on it did become monstrous. And the shortcut to transcendence did lead precisely where he said it led. He saw it coming, and he said so, and nobody listened. And then he lived long enough to watch every part of it arrive on schedule. There is a particular kind of despair in being right about a catastrophe. It does not feel like vindication. It feels like being the only awake person in a house that is filling with smoke, and shouting, and watching everybody roll over and go back to sleep, and eventually running out of voice. So he stopped shouting. He sat down by the window, and he looked at the lake, and he repeated the warning to nobody, quietly, for the rest of his life, in the hope that it would be there if anyone ever came back. Somebody did come back. You did. 200 years too late, with a saw in your hand. Let it be still now. Let the reeds move in the dark. Let us sit with him a moment. Not to ask him anything, just to sit. The lake is still. The moon is on the water. The old man in the chair is not going to move, and nothing is going to happen, and there is nowhere else you need to be. Rest. Let the water be still. Let your breathing slow to the same rhythm as the reeds. The doll, who was made to be loved, in a dream, in a garden of white flowers, there is a workshop, and outside the workshop there is a doll lying on the ground. She is life-sized. Porcelain, or something like it. Jointed, her eyes are open and she is not looking at anything. She has been lying there in the grass for some time. And then, at a certain point in the night, you come back through the lamplight into the dream, and she is standing up. Her voice is very soft. She greets you. She calls you a good hunter. She tells you that she exists to serve you, and that if you bring her the echoes of the blood you have spilled, she will use them to make you stronger. And she does. That is her function. She is the mechanism by which you improve, and she performs it kneeling, with her head bowed, murmuring gently. And it is the most unsettling, tender thing in this entire game. The doll was made by Gehrman. He made her in the image of a woman he knew. We will come to that woman, and to him, and it will not be pleasant. But for now, hold this. An old man, alone in a dream that does not end, built a life-sized replica of someone he could not have, and left it lying in his garden. And then something moved into it. That is the part nobody can explain, and I am going to be honest about the limits of what is known here, because this is one of the places where the game refuses to close the loop. The doll comes alive. Something animates her. The most common reading, and it is a reading and not a stated fact, is that the moon presence did it, either as a kindness to Gehrman or as a piece of machinery in a system nobody fully understands. Some believe there is something of Maria in her, Some believe there is nothing in her at all, and that she is exactly what she appears to be, an empty vessel performing love very well. The doll herself does not know. She says so. She wonders aloud, in that quiet voice, whether she really feels anything, or whether she only seems to. And she is kind anyway. That is her answer to the question. She cannot resolve whether her compassion is real, so she simply keeps being compassionate, on the grounds that it does not appear to hurt anybody. There are people who find her the most frightening thing in Bloodborne, and I understand it. A servant who cannot refuse, a woman made to order, who thanks you for the privilege. There is something in that arrangement that should make anybody uneasy, and Bloodborne knows exactly what it is doing, and it does not flinch, and it does not apologise, but I will tell you the thing that turns it. For me, Gehrman does not like her. He built her, and he cannot stand to look at her, and he tells you so. She is a poor imitation. She is a mockery of the thing he lost. He resents her for not being real, and he resents himself for making her, and the two resentments have been sitting in that dream souring for a very long time. And she knows. Of course she knows. She has spent an eternity being gently despised by her own creator, and she still tends the flowers, and she still says good evening, and she still calls you a good hunter when you come back through the gate covered in the night. Whatever she is, she chose that. Out of everything available to her, she chose to be gentle. That is not nothing. That may be the only unambiguously good thing in the entire city. And there is one thing she does that I think about more than almost anything else in this game. When you leave the dream and go back out into Yharnam, and you die out there as you will over and over, you come back. You wake up in the garden. And she is there, and she never says anything about it. She does not ask what happened. She does not tell you to be more careful. She does not look disappointed. She does not keep count. Every single time, no matter how badly it went, no matter how many times it has already gone badly, she stands up and she greets you, and she calls you a good hunter, and she means it in exactly the same way as the first time. That is a machine, some people would say. That is just what she is programmed to do. Perhaps, but then, that is also what an animating principle of love looks like from the outside, and I am not sure the distinction holds up as well as we would like it to. She could be cold. Nothing prevents it. Nobody would correct her. She chooses the greeting. Every time. Forever, in a garden nobody else will ever see. Let the flowers be still. Let it be very quiet in the dream. Let us stay in the garden a while. The flowers are white and small, and there are a great many of them. The light is dim and blue. Somewhere behind you a wheelchair creaks. Nothing is going to happen for a long time. Rest here. Gehrman, the first hunter. He is sitting in a wheelchair among the flowers, with his back to you, and he is old. Gehrman is the first hunter, and the last one, and the one who has been here the longest, and he would like to die. Let us take him carefully, because he deserves it. Before the church, before the hunts, before all of it, there was a workshop, and there was a man in it who made weapons. Not swords, not the honest tools of a soldier. He made things for killing beasts. Saws, cleavers, hafted blades that folded out into something worse. Every weapon you have carried through this night came out of Gehrman's head, and he made them for a reason. And the reason was that Yharnam had a problem, and somebody had to solve it with their hands. He trained the first hunters. Maria was one of them. Djura, perhaps, a whole generation of people who went out into the streets with his tools and did what he taught them. And it broke him. It broke all of them. And when it was over, and the city was worse than before, Gehrman ended up here, in the hunter's dream, bound to something enormous and silent and pale, in a garden that never changes, in a house with a fire that never goes out. He is the caretaker. That is the arrangement. Hunters come into this dream, and he teaches them, and he sends them out, and when they die out there they wake up here, and he sends them out again. Over and over. For as long as it takes. He has watched more people go into that city than you can count, and he has watched almost every one of them come apart, and he has kept sending them, because that is the job, and because he cannot leave. He is very old and very tired, and he is not allowed to stop. When you speak to him, he is kind. That is the awful thing. He calls you a good hunter. He tells you to be careful. There is real affection in it, and it is worn thin as paper. And at the end of the night, when the sky begins to lighten and the hunt is over, he offers you a way out. He offers to end it. He tells you that if you kneel, he will free you from the dream, and you will wake up in Yharnam with the morning coming in through the window and none of this in your head, and you can go home.
And it will be over. And he means it. He is not lying. That ending is real. He is also offering it, because that is what he is for. Because the thing that keeps him here wants the cycle to close, and this is how it closes, and Gehrman has been doing this a very long time. If you refuse, he stands up out of the chair. And that is the moment, and I want to give it its due.
The old man puts his hands on the arms of the chair and pushes himself upright, and he takes up the scythe he made with his own hands, and he says that he is sorry. And he is, and then he is faster than anything you have fought all night. Because he is the first hunter, and he made all of this, and he has forgotten more about killing than you will ever learn. He does not want to. He tells you so. He says it out loud, in the flowers, in the dawn. That is Gehrman, the man who built the tools and taught the technique and started the whole terrible tradition, and who has spent an eternity in a beautiful garden begging for someone to let him sleep. And here is the small, terrible symmetry that the game never points at, and that you notice about a week later in the shower, and then cannot stop noticing. Gehrman built a doll of a woman who would not have him, and set it in a garden, and then spent an eternity resenting it for being what he made it. And the thing that keeps Gehrman in the dream did exactly the same thing to him. He is the doll. He is the substitute. He is a caretaker in a nursery, sitting in a chair, animated by a thing far above him, performing a function he did not choose for a purpose he does not fully understand, kept there because he is useful, and because his keeper cannot let go of what it lost. He hates the doll for being an imitation of a person. He has been an imitation of a person for longer than he can remember. That is the machinery of this world, in a sentence. Everything that has been hurt goes on to build something in the shape of what it lost, and then hurts that too. But not tonight. Not here. Tonight the garden is quiet and the old man is asleep in his chair with his chin on his chest, and nobody is asking anything of him, and nothing is required. Let him sleep. It is the only thing he ever wanted. We are going to leave him there, in the moment before any of it, sitting in the chair with his back to us, dozing in the pale light. Let him doze. Let it be quiet. The flowers do not move. Rest, Valtr, and the men who eat vermin. There is a man in a helmet made of iron, kneeling in a graveyard, and he wants to talk to you about worms. Valtr, Master of the League. He is one of the strangest people in this world, and he is presented so matter-of-factly that most players walk straight past him. He believes in vermin. That is the doctrine. Valtr and his league hold that the true source of the beast plague is not blood, and not the church, and not the cosmos. It is worms. Small, wriggling, invisible things that live inside people, in the blood, in the flesh, and that must be found and crushed. He carries a specific tool for this purpose. He wears a helmet that blinds him, deliberately, because he does not trust his own eyes, and he does not need them, because the vermin can be sensed rather than seen. And here is what makes Valtr genuinely disturbing rather than merely eccentric. He is not entirely wrong. There really are vermin. They really do come out of certain corpses. The game confirms it. You find them, and they are real, and they are foul. The League's whole strange theology is built on an observation that is, at least in part, true, but he has built a cult on it. He has a covenant, and the covenant sends its members out to find the vermin, and finding the vermin requires killing the people the vermin are in, and Valtr has therefore constructed a comprehensive moral framework in which killing strangers is a form of surgery. He is very polite about it. He is welcoming. He calls you a comrade. He is delighted when you join. And he goes mad if you follow his story to the end. He and a colleague go out into the graveyards and something happens between them, and the doctrine curdles, and by the last time you see him he is not a man who believes in vermin, he is a man who has been eaten by his own idea. That is what Yharnam does to every framework anybody builds. The church, the choir, Mensis, the League. It does not matter whether your theory is right or wrong. It matters that you built a machine for finding enemies, and the machine will keep running after you have stopped being able to steer it. I said early on that this city is full of monsters wearing people's faces. Valtr is the other thing. A person wearing a monster's helmet, on purpose, because he thinks it makes him better at helping. Enough of him. The graveyard is empty. The iron helmet is lying in the grass with nobody in it. Whatever crawled out of Yharnam is long dead and long buried and cannot reach you. Breathe slowly. Let your jaw unclench. Let the night close over it. Simon the Harrowed, who wanted to confess. He is sitting on a stone bench in the hunter's nightmare, and he is bleeding, and he asks you not to worry about it. Simon is one of the last people you meet in this story, and he is one of the only ones who chooses to be honest with you, and it costs him everything, and he does it anyway. Let us set the scene, because the hunter's nightmare needs a moment of its own. There is a place where hunters go when they die. Not the dream. The dream is Gehrman's garden, and it is soft, and there are flowers in it. The nightmare is the other one. It is Yharnam, but folded, and burned, and drowned in blood, and filled with every hunter who ever went out into the fog and never stopped. They are still there. They are still hunting. There is nothing left to hunt, so they hunt each other, and they have been doing this for a length of time that does not have a number. That is the punishment, and it is worth pausing on. The hunters of Yharnam killed and told themselves it was necessary, and when they died, the thing they built kept them. Not hell, worse than hell, because hell would at least be a judgment. This is just the job, continuing, without end, in a city that no longer needs it. Simon is in there, and he is not fighting. He is sitting on a bench, quietly, wearing a light coat, carrying a bow blade, which is a strange elegant weapon that folds out of itself, and he is talking to you in a voice that is careful and thoughtful and a little amused. He asks how you found the place. He tells you a few things you did not know. He is, of all the things in this world, a genuinely pleasant conversationalist. And he has a secret, and the secret is eating him. Simon knows what the church did, not the general shape of it, which everybody knows. The specific thing. The thing under the fishing hamlet, the thing that was done to a village of people who had never harmed anyone, the thing that started the nightmare in the first place. He knows, and he has known for a long time, and he has never told anybody, because he was there. Or near enough, because he was part of the church, and because he took the coat, and the tools, and the blood, and the mission, and because he did not stop it. And because he has spent his afterlife in a burning city thinking about what he did not stop. When you find him the last time, he is dying. Properly and finally, and he tells you. He gets the confession out. He tells you where to go and what to look for and what the church did to the people who lived by the sea. And he says it plainly. And then he asks you to do something about it. Because he cannot. And then he is quiet. That is Simon. A man who was complicit in a monstrous thing and who spent the rest of eternity trying to find one person he could tell. I think he is the moral centre of the old hunters, and I think he is one of the most quietly devastating characters fromsoftware has ever written, and I think the reason he lands is that he does not ask for forgiveness. He never asks you to say it is all right. He just needs somebody to know. He needs the information to survive him. That is the entire ambition of his afterlife, and it is a small ambition, and he barely achieves it. There is a version of Simon that the game does not write, and I think about it sometimes. A version where he keeps quiet. Where he sits on the bench, pleasant and cultured, and lets you walk past, and never tells you what he saw. That version of Simon is easy to imagine, because that version of Simon is what almost everybody in Yharnam actually did. The church knew, the hunters knew. Somebody drew the plans and somebody carried the equipment and somebody wrote it all down afterward in a neat hand. None of them said anything. For 100 years, none of them said anything. And Simon is not brave. I want to be honest about that. Because it is what makes him bearable. He does not confess when it would have cost him something. He does not confess in the church, or in the streets, or to anyone who could have used it. He confesses at the very end in a nightmare to a stranger, when he is already dying and there is nothing left to lose and no institution left to punish him. That is not courage. That is what is left when courage has run out and a person still cannot quite live with themselves. And I think that is why he moves people. Because almost nobody is brave in the moment. Almost everybody is Simon. Almost everybody carries the thing around for years, telling themselves that they will say it when the time is right, and the time is never right. And then one evening they find themselves telling a stranger, badly, too late, for no reason except that they cannot hold it anymore. He got it out. In the end, he got it out. That is more than the whole rest of the church managed between them. Let the fire on the horizon burn low. Let the bench go cold. And then one exhausted man on a bench in a burning city looked at a stranger and decided that being thought well of was less important than being understood, and told the truth. That is all any of them could have done. At any point. Any one of them. At any time. Let us leave him. Let us leave him gently, because he earned it. The bench is empty. The fire on the horizon is very far away, and it makes no sound. The stone is cool. There is nobody left in the nightmare who has anything to say, and the silence there is not a threatening silence. It is only the silence of a thing that is finally over. Breathe out. Let your hands open. Let the weight go out of your shoulders. Rest, Brador, who comes when you ring the bell. There is a knocking sound. You are in the hunter's nightmare, and you are alone, and somewhere far off there is a bell, and then, faintly, from somewhere you cannot identify, a knocking. And then you are not alone. Brador is the most frightening thing in Bloodborne, and he is not a boss, and he is not a beast, and he does not have a cutscene, and he is not required. He is an intrusion. He arrives in your game on his own schedule in the middle of whatever you happen to be doing, and he tries to kill you, and then he leaves. He is a church assassin. That is his official title, and it is not a euphemism. Here is the story, as far as it can be told honestly. The healing church had a problem. Its own hunters knew too much. They had been out to the fishing hamlet, they had seen what was done there, they had been in the rooms and carried the tools, and the church could not have that walking around a city it was trying to run. So it made a man whose job was to kill hunters. Not blood-drunk ones. Not failures. The ones who had done exactly as they were told, and then had the poor judgment to remain alive afterward. Brador killed the hunters of the church. And when the nightmare took everybody, it took him too. And now he is locked in a cell in a dungeon in the nightmare, and he is still doing the job. You can go and find him. That is the part that makes it unbearable. You can walk down into the dungeon and stand outside his cell and hear him breathing on the other side of the door. And he will speak to you, and what he says is quiet and apologetic, and completely without malice. He does not want to be doing this. He tells you that. He asks to be left alone. He is a man in a hole, and he does not come out. Except that he does. Because you rang a bell, or because someone else did, or because the sinister mechanisms of that world do not require your consent. And so he leaves the cell, and he finds you wherever you are, and he does what he was made for. He wears the skull of a beast on his head. He carries a bell in one hand and a blade in the other. He does not talk when he arrives. He does not gloat. He does not do anything except the work. Efficiently. And then he goes back to his hole. And later, you can go and stand outside the door again, and he will apologise. I want to name what is horrifying here, because it is not the fight. It is that Brador is the only character in Bloodborne who is straightforwardly a tool. Everyone else has an idea. Micolash has a theory. Alfred has a faith. Willem has a philosophy. Even Patches has a sense of humour. Brador has an instruction. And the instruction is older than the nightmare, and older than the fall of Yharnam, and it has outlived the institution that issued it. And he is still following it. In a hole, in a dream, hundreds of years after there is anybody left to give it. That is what the church made, in the end. Not a god. Not a cure. A man in a cell who cannot stop killing because nobody ever came back to tell him he could. That is a very hard thing to sit with, and I am not going to make you sit with it. Come out of the dungeon. Up the stairs, out into the air. The bell is not ringing. Nobody is knocking. That door is shut, and the man behind it has been at rest for a very long time, and the instruction he was following died with the last person who could remember it. There is nothing coming. Nothing is coming. Let that be true for a while. Let the muscles in your face let go. Let the sound of your own breathing be the only thing in the room. Rest. Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. At the top of a tower, in a room with a great clock face in the wall, a woman is sitting in a chair with her hands folded. She is not moving. She has not moved in a long time. There is dust on her. The moonlight comes through the clock face and lies across the floor in long pale bars, and the mechanism above turns very slowly, and there is a smell of old paper. And she sits in her chair as though she has been waiting for an appointment that was cancelled a century ago. Her name is Lady Maria, of the Astral Clock Tower, and she is the last person we are going to meet, and she is the one that people cannot stop thinking about afterwards. You will already know her face. That is the first thing.
You have seen it every night since the beginning, because the doll wears it, and Gehrman made the doll, and Gehrman made the doll because he could not have Maria. She was his student, one of the first hunters. She fought with a strange, elegant weapon, a blade that comes apart into two, and she fought beautifully, and she was very good at it, and she was, by every account we are given,
an extraordinary person. She was also of Cain Hurst. There is noble blood in her, the blood of the house on the cliff. And she left it behind and came to Yharnam and took up the tools of a hunter, and there is a whole life implied in that decision that the game never tells us about. And she went to the fishing hamlet. That is where all of this ends up. Every thread in Bloodborne, if you follow it long enough, arrives at a village by the sea and something the church did there. Maria was part of it. She was there. She helped. Whatever was done in that place, she had a hand in it, and afterwards she could not carry it. So she threw her weapon down a well, and she went up into a tower, and she sat down. And she stayed there, guarding a staircase that leads down to the truth, keeping people away from the thing she cannot bear to have known, in a room with a clock in it, alone, for as long as it has taken. When you come to that room, she wakes up. And what she says to you is not a threat. It is a warning, and it is delivered with real gentleness. She tells you that a corpse should be left alone. She tells you that some things are better not looked at, that the dead should be allowed to be dead, and she is not talking about a body, she is talking about the past, and she is talking about herself. She would rather you turned around and went home. And when you do not, she stands up, and she is the most beautiful thing in the entire game. And she is also going to kill you 11 or 12 times before you learn her rhythm, and every time she does it with the same weary courtesy. The fight against Maria is a piece of choreography. She does not lunge, she does not roar. She fights the way a fencer fights, in clean lines, with pauses, and there is a terrible grace in it. And at a certain point in the fight, she does the thing that she is famous for, and the room fills with blood that is her own, and she uses it, because that is what hunters of Yharnam learnt to do, and it is the only ugly thing she does all night, and she does it because she has to. And when it is over, she says something quiet. I am not going to quote her. It is hers, but the sense of it is that she is grateful, that she is not angry, that she understands why you came, and she does not hold it against you, and she hopes, in a distant, exhausted way, that you find whatever it is that you think is down there. And then she is gone, and the room is empty again, and the clock keeps turning. Maria is the whole of Bloodborne in one person. She is beautiful, and she is complicit, and she is ashamed, and she is trying, in the only way she has left, to stop somebody else from having to know what she knows. She is a woman guarding a door she wishes had never been built. And the thing that finally destroys her is not a monster or a great one or the blood. It is a stranger who will not stop asking questions. That is the horror at the bottom of this game, and it has nothing to do with the cosmos. It is that the truth gets out eventually. Somebody always climbs the stairs, and whatever you built on top of the thing you did, however high, however lovely, however patiently maintained, it does not hold. She knew that. I think that is why she is sitting in the chair rather than standing at the door. She was not really guarding anything. She was waiting. And there is one more thing about that room that I want to leave with you, because it is the sort of detail that makes people love this game for the rest of their lives. The clock in the wall does not tell the time. It is enormous, and it is beautiful, and it turns slowly in front of the moon. And if you stand in that room and watch it long enough, you realise that it is not measuring anything. There is nowhere in the nightmare for time to go. Nothing is going to happen at 3. Nothing was scheduled for dawn. The mechanism turns because it is a mechanism, and turning is what it does, and it has been doing it since long before Maria sat down, and it will keep doing it long after everybody in this story has been forgotten. She sat in front of that for 100 years, a woman who could not sleep, in front of a clock that could not stop, in a tower above a truth she could not undo. And she was not bitter about it. That is the last extraordinary thing about her. When you finally take it away from her, she thanks you. Enough, let the mechanism turn. Let the moonlight move across the boards, very slowly, an inch at a time, the way it has always moved. All right. Let us leave her. The clock face is turning. The moonlight is moving very slowly across the boards. The chair is empty now, and the dust is settling back onto it, and the room is quiet, and outside the great pale moon is going down over a city that has been asleep for centuries. Let your breathing go long and slow. There is nothing on the stairs. Rest, what remains, and who is left. We are near the end now, and I want to spend the last of it on the ones we walked past. Because Yharnam is not only made of the people who have names, it is made of the ones who do not. There are the Charm Maidens. You will have seen them, standing in the middle of a street or a courtyard, hunched over, cloaked, ringing a small bell over and over. They do not fight. They ring, and the ringing calls things. That is all they are for. And when you get close enough to stop them, what is under the cloak is not quite anything you can put a name to, and the ringing stops, and the street goes quiet. Nobody knows what they were. They are the sound of Yharnam more than any of the rest of it, that thin, patient, endless chime in the fog, coming from around a corner you have not turned yet. There are the townspeople with torches, who are not beasts. That is a thing worth remembering. Half the things trying to kill you in the streets of Yharnam are simply people. Frightened people with pitchforks and torches and axes, out in the night because the church told them the hunt was holy, and because they are terrified, and because a mob is the last comfort available to a city that has run out of every other kind. They shout at you. They call you a beast. And from where they are standing, covered in blood, in the dark, with a saw in your hand, they are not entirely wrong. There are the choir up in the upper cathedral ward, and I have not given them a chapter, and I will not, because there is not much to say about them that is not simply the same sentence over again. Scholars, curious, willing, they found children, and they experimented on them, and they left the results in cages. And then something came in through the roof, and dealt with the choir, in a manner that the game presents entirely without comment. And there are the messengers. Small pale hands and heads coming up out of the ground. They are everywhere in the dream. They hold your lantern. They bring you things. They wear little hats if you give them hats, and they wave when you leave, and they are so pleased when you come back. Nobody is sure what they are. The kindest reading, and it is a theory and I want to be honest about that, is that they are the hunters. All of them. Everyone who ever went out into Yharnam and did not come back, reduced down to something small and simple and helpful, still in the dream, still doing what they can. I do not know whether that is true. Nobody does. But I notice that of everything in this world, the messengers are the only things that are happy to see you. And I notice that they never ask you for anything. And I notice that if you give them a hat, they will wear it forever. So, that is Yharnam. Let us take stock, gently. And then let us stop. A doctor who was not a doctor. A father who could not hear the music. A little girl at a window. An old woman in a bird mask who did the hardest job in the city and never once complained about it. A cheerful man on a staircase who turned out to be the worst person in the story. A woman in a red dress who was refused shelter by everyone but you. A nun who loved too hard. A man on a tower protecting monsters from hunters. A queen in a cage. A scholar in a birdcage screaming for eyes. An old man in a chair waiting to be told he can stop. A doll in a garden choosing to be kind. A woman at the top of a tower waiting for someone to climb it. Not one of them was a monster to begin with. That is the thing about Bloodborne that keeps people coming back to it years afterward. Long after the fights have stopped being difficult, and the map has stopped being confusing. It is not a game about horrors from beyond the stars. The horrors from beyond the stars are, in the end, quite sad and quite lonely, and they mostly want to be left alone. It is a game about what people do to each other in the meantime. and every single act of harm in it, every one, was committed by somebody who thought they were doing the right thing. The church thought it was healing the sick. Bergenworth thought it was seeking the truth. Mensis thought it was making contact. The League thought it was curing the plague. The Hunters thought they were protecting the city. Alfred thought he was serving God. Even Iosefka, whoever she really was, thought she was learning something worth learning. Nobody in Yharnam set out to be cruel. They just got certain, and stayed certain, and did not look up. And I think that is the reason this city stays with people for years afterward. Not because it is frightening, though it is. Because it is recognisable. Everyone in Yharnam is doing something reasonable. Every one of them could explain their decision to you clearly, in a calm voice, with good reasons, and most of the reasons would hold up. The city is not built out of villains. It is built out of sensible people, each one taking one small sensible step in a direction nobody ever stopped to check. That is how anything like this happens, anywhere, and it never looks like a monster while it is happening. It looks like work. It looks like a coat, and a schedule, and a job that somebody has to do. Let it go now. It is finished, and it was a long time ago, and none of it is asking anything of you tonight. And underneath all of it, in the middle of a city that had convinced itself of the necessity of everything it was doing, there was a man in a chapel who kept the door open, and an old woman worrying about the cold, and a girl asking about a white ribbon. That is what the city was defending, and that is what it lost, and that is what it never noticed it was spending. Now we are going to stop, and I want you to let all of it go. None of them are waiting for you. There is nobody behind the door. The chime has stopped. The lanterns are burning low and even, and the fog is settling in the streets, and the whole city is going quiet, one district at a time, the way a house goes quiet at the end of a long evening. The graveyard is still. The chapel fire is banked. The garden is dark, and the flowers are closed. The clock in the tower is turning, slowly, and the moon has gone behind the roofs, and there is no sound anywhere except the very small sound of your own breathing, going slower now and slower. You do not have to keep listening. You have not missed anything. There is nothing more to know. Let the fog come in. Let it fill the streets and the alleys and the low places, soft and grey and warm, and let it come up over everything until there is nothing left to see, and nothing left to do, and nowhere at all that you need to be. The lamps are going out, one by one, all the way down the long hill, and the city is letting go of the night. Sleep well. Good night.